Thank you. Good evening, Virginia Democrats. Who is ready to keep Virginia blue in 2017? Who's ready to keep Virginia progressive in 2017? This is an incredible moment. As someone born and raised in Charlottesville, Virginia, I would not have believed the day that when a racial demagogue grew on our soil, that it would be Virginia that was the only southern state that stood and rejected that kind of hate and division. Not only did Virginia defeat Donald Trump thanks to all of your efforts, he did worse in Virginia than any Republican candidate in my entire life. Think about that. Nearly 60% of Virginians who voted went to the polls and rejected Donald Trump and hate and division. This is an incredible accomplishment. Now, I had that hope in part because the first campaign I ever worked on as a ninth grader was knocking doors for Doug Wilder. And for me, one of the reasons I went into the world with so much hope was seeing Virginia not only elect an African-American governor, but we did it before any other state in the entire country. Virginia has always had these two traditions. One of this incredible aspiration to justice and liberty, the home of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and the victories we just discussed of Barbara Johns walking out in Farmville. But then we are also the home of slavery and original sin, of Jim Crow, of redlining. And the fight throughout the centuries and the decades has been which of these forces in Virginia is going to win. And guess what? Progress is winning in Virginia. My father grew up the son of immigrants in West Virginia without much money, but the community pitched together and got him a scholarship to come across the mountains and go to UVA. So Charlottesville was always the Mecca for my family. It was the land of opportunity, and it was the ticket into the American dream. But I knew from a young age, when literally my public school bus crossed the railroad tracks, that not everybody had access to the same opportunities. And for me, the promise of Virginia is not a real promise until we make sure everybody has equal access to education, to the workforce, to live where they want to live, and to live with dignity. To be honest, I wasn't supposed to be here tonight. You may have heard something about that. I just finished working for President Obama. It was an incredible honor. We all miss him. We miss the First Lady. I'd actually spent the last few years working on what it would mean to run a Truth and Reconciliation Commission on race in Virginia based on the work I'd been doing in Africa and Afghanistan. And that's what I'd been hoping to do. But then the election happened. I've seen racial demagogues rise in countries that I've worked in. You do not let them have 1 inch. You do not meet them with kindness. You meet them with fierce, fierce resistance. But there was something else that concerned me on election night, which I think is central to how we face this election year. I mentioned that nearly 60% of Virginia voters rejected Donald Trump. We need to remember that a majority of Virginia voters also rejected the Democratic Party. In fact, our candidates in the last 3 statewide elections, amazing candidates, have all been below 50%. When Democrats run on the status quo, we tend to lose. There are an enormous number of people out there who are anti-Trump. But we should not assume because they are anti-Trump that they're pro-Democrat. We have to earn those votes. We have to go out and make the case to each of them. As Justin mentioned, we have to be able to walk and chew gum. We must be absolute in our resistance against hate and division and attacks on the Constitution. But we must also have a positive vision of inclusive economic growth. And there are a couple of things I think it's important that I keep in mind every morning. One is $14,000 a year. Do you know what $14,000 a year is? That's full-time work on the minimum wage. Can you imagine living in this neighborhood on $14,000 a year? And we wonder why people don't necessarily think the Democratic Party has been fighting sufficiently for that. We are behind West Virginia on the minimum wage. I think of $28,000 a year. That's what it would mean to have $15 an hour minimum wage. I think about this. Stealing a cell phone constitutes felony larceny in Virginia. It's one of the most regressive criminal codes in the country, and once you're charged, we may give you only about $275 of legal defense. We still have a criminal code dating back to the Jim Crow era that is excluding people and creating a school-to-prison pipeline instead of a school-to-workforce pipeline. The Virginia that is going to bring out voters this year, that is not going to not just win us the governor's race, but is going to win us all the delegate races we can and these local races, is one where we stand up for the vulnerable, stand up for opportunity, stand up for affordable education. And I just want to mention one last thing before I do this, because it's personal to me. You may have noticed I don't stand still very well. And I didn't when I was a kid. I was a pretty hyperactive kid. I didn't have the best attention span. Some people say I still don't. But because of the privileges I had of class and race, my teachers told me that made me dynamic. That made me a leader. And it put me on a pathway to the Ivy League and to Congress at 34. And I wake up every morning knowing that if my straights had been different, I might have been getting suspended by the second grade. I might have been on a pipeline to trouble thinking school isn't my kind of home. It's not where I belong. All people want is the chance for their kids to get a good education, a good community college education, maybe a good apprenticeship program, and be treated with basic dignity. That's why when I was in Congress, I was proud to support the Affordable Care Act. I was proud to support our teachers. I was proud to support a stimulus act and proud to stand by President Obama. And the last thing I just want to mention, because I think it's the most important thing we can take away, because I know the most important thing to everyone in this room is not any of the candidates that mentioned today. We're all going to be fine as people. It's about winning. And what I want you to remember is that if people had asked you who would have a chance of beating Virgil Goode, you would have described the exact opposite of me. If you had said, who could knock off this guy who no one's come within 20 points of? You wouldn't have said 2 Yale degrees, someone who's been hanging out in West Africa, and someone's to the left of the party on culture and economic issues at the time. We're glad the party's caught up, by the way. But we did it because people are a lot smarter than we think they are. That's why we've been spending so much time in Trump country, not because it's important in a primary, but because we're not just going to turn out the Obama coalition. We're not just going to turn out the Clinton voters. We're going to go out and win back those voters, because when we stand with those who are suffering, they will stand with us. I hope you will give our campaign a look at tomforvirginia.com. I think I'm the first one to get a website out there. But mostly I just want to say this. We have a chance to do more than win a governor's race this year. We have a chance to redesign the political map of Virginia. We have a once-in-a-generation chance where the intensity is entirely on our side. We just cannot take that intensity for granted. We must go meet it, we must embrace it, we must stand proudly for our progressive values and know that progressive values are Virginia values, and know that if we embrace them, we will win big in 2017, and we will win big in a way that ensures the Virginia dream applies to every single person. Thank you so much.